It's been a busy few days. Big earnings, big moves, and some surprising reactions. Apple and Amazon made headlines, Palantir's turning heads in AI, and the market's trying to make sense of it all. Add in weak jobs data, shifting rate expectations, and fresh tensions in oil, and there's a lot to unpack. I'm Johanna Bota, and joining us to break down what's really driving markets right now is StoneX's Vice President, Global Head of Retail Dealing Desk, Alex Ridgers. Welcome back, Alex. Nice to have you with us. So let's dive right in. Can you give me a roundup of the past few days?
Yes, let's start with US earnings. So we had Apple was the big one last week. And again, I mean, I think I was, as I said I'm saying it again because I sort of not quite predicted it, but said it last Thursday, that again, the market is moving from hardware to software. So iPhone sales out of the park were absolutely fantastic, yet Apple dropped on the back of it. So again, it's sort of, when we're talking about winners and losers from AI, people are trying to work that out and Apple are just struggling at the moment. But what they haven't ruled out is further purchases. So it seems to me that a lot of AI valuations are sort of on the back of the idea that a giant like Apple might come and swoop. Then the other major one was Amazon. And again, similar things where there was absolutely nothing wrong with their results. They were down 7% on the back of the results. But I mean, for every article you read, you found a different reason why they were down. So no one really knows. I mean, my main take was that their cash reserves, I mean, pretty much obliterated from like $53 billion down to 21 because they've spent it all on AI. And I'm not sure, I think investors think they haven't quite seen sort of reap the benefits from those. Their cloud growth was good, but not as good as rivals. And then I think the other one, which is almost the sort of stopper for the future, was just the infrastructure backlog. There's the most incredible stat. I think you go back and look at how much is spent on US office space versus, again, sort of hardware, these sort of giant warehouses for sort of AI tech servers, etc. The spending there used to be sort of 10 billion to 65 billion in terms of office costs.
Yeah.
We're about to switch where there's more spending on infrastructure for housing, computing, etc., than there is on office space in the whole of the US, which is incredible.
Makes total sense.
Yes,
where the world is heading. So I don't know why I'm asking because I already know, but give me the clear winner.
Yes, well, and this I mean, it's really good timing us doing the video today because the results came out sort of last night, so we're now seeing the market still play out, as we speak. So Palantir Technologies, they're an incredible company, or from what I can see, they're really sort of switching the way we're thinking about AI. So first of all, the headlines, again, they're up 9.5%. They're at 175. 52 weeks ago, they were at 21. So in terms of AI winners, they are leading the way. And for me, it's this idea of, as I said at the start, where we're looking at seeing who are the AI winners, who are the AI losers, because there's a lot of companies chasing that prize. Almost that idea that from where is the market going? They're sort of that idea that they're embedding themselves within companies, within sort of governments and companies, rather than just being a sort of consumer point and click device, if you see what I mean. I think it's showing sort of the true power of AI.
And how are you reading these earnings report? I mean, what stands out to you from both sides, the winners and the losers? Yes.
Well, if I sort of almost stand right back, rather than we've talked a bit about the individual companies, I almost see from sort of one business perspective and one consumer perspective.
Yeah.
From businesses, Palantir, as I said, they look amazing, and I almost sort of, for want of a sort of better metaphor, they're almost like that sort of mycelium network of a fungus that's huge and underground. Almost that's sort of what's sitting, in a company or government's framework, and just able to sort of go into it and just be able to get such amazing data out. And so that, from my perspective, that's really what's going to take AI forward, where all of a sudden companies are going to get so efficient and be able to get so much more out of their data because they've got this sort of massive brain linking up all the different parts that they were never capable of before. And then going back to the consumer side, again, we were talking about hardware, software, that idea that's so much investor focus over the last few weeks on sort of infrastructure and just having those sort of data sources and the cloud sources. It strikes me that we're going to a world of sort of thinner devices, just generally devices that may not be like a chunky old brick there's the phone used to be, even in modern smartphone terms, that as we're talking about cloud computing, more and more seems to be going to be done in the cloud and leave us with smaller, thinner devices. And I think, obviously it's not new news. Samsung have a very thin phone out. Apple are apparently going to launch the sort of iPhone Air that's going to be very thin.
Another one to buy?
Exactly. But it seems to me that's only the start of it. It's almost like the start of the end of the phone as we know it, where it's going to be going to thinner devices with more and more done in the cloud.
Yeah. So earnings aside, what did you make of the NFP numbers?
Yes, well, that was fascinating. I think the original glance at the headline figure, it's not that bad, 100 and something predicted. Just over 173, you thought, well, that's not bad, slightly underperformance. But when you looked at the revisions, and I think this is why sort of Trump was so annoyed, the revisions for not just for the previous month, but the last 2 months were about 250,000 jobs less than expected. So this was I think why the markets took it so badly, is up until now we've seen no real sort of detriment from the tariffs or, even just from the panic around tariffs. So this was the first real sign that actually they're having an impact on jobs.
Yeah, well, he went as far as firing the person in charge.
Yes, exactly.
Well, you brought him up, I didn't, but let's stay on the Trump bandwagon. What is your take on India and oil? Like, what do you make of this standoff?
Modi, I almost admire him in some way, that he's the first prime minister, the first sort of premier, however you want to put it, that's really stood up to Donald Trump, really said, I know you're saying this, but just no. Do your worst. It's a no. So Trump was threatening and now has put 25% tariffs on India, essentially because India, and partly because of where they are sort of positioned on the globe, they still buy a lot of Russian oil. They buy the vast majority of their oil from Russia. So Trump obviously doesn't like this because he's trying to make peace, and I think that he considers. I think there's two things in this. One which we'll go on to later. I think he considers almost like giving Russia a lifeline. Tariffs aren't going to, and embargoes on Russia aren't going to work, while India is buying oil and also weapons. Yeah, exactly. So why? And I think this is fascinating from India's perspective. I think the economists predict that the 25% tariff, it'll have a sort of 0.6% knock on their GDP. I mean, if that's the UK, like that's an absolute disaster. But Indian growth can swallow that, quite happily.
Yeah, there was some big news on Sunday too from OPEC. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, and so oil we've got a fascinating to and fro for oil. From one perspective, what we're talking about is sort of India, and again, if they're still buying Russian oil, they're having no impact, but that could well change in their impact on sort of what we're talking about, NYMEX and Brent crude prices. Yeah. So first of all, this he said to OPEC on Sunday, a big shock where they came out and said, actually, look, we've had a sort of I don't know if it's a 2 or 4 year plan to limit oil production by 2.2 million barrels. Per day. We're getting rid of that, and we're also going to expand by an extra half a million. So that's about, again, we're talking, I think oil supply is about just over 100 million barrels a day now. Yeah. So 2-3% doesn't seem like a lot, but actually is a hell of a lot. So that's caused the sort of front month Brent crude to drop from 71 to 68 and NYMEX from sort of 69 to 65. So we've seen a big drop there, which is good. But I can see, going back to sort of mixing sort of Modi and oil, I can go back to seeing an ulterior motive of Trump where India are 5.4% of the sort of world's oil consumption, which I was surprised it's so big. So India consume more oil than Germany, France and the UK put together.
Okay.
So you can imagine if all of a sudden India doesn't buy Russian oil and has to buy off the regular markets, that's going to have a severe impact on, it's going to push up demand and push up prices dramatically. So I can see that shale oil supplies in the US, they're still plentiful, but actually the cost of production is a lot higher. So they've actually been turning off quite a few sort of massive refineries, et cetera, have all been turning off. So if Trump can get India to be buying US oil, just pushing oil prices up, all of a sudden that's really boosting US production and infrastructure there. So there's sort of that side that I see the ulterior motive there. But going back to the inflation finally, that's my sort of one worry, I think, where we've now seen from the non-farm payrolls, we've got that idea that the last time we chatted, there was going to be one rate cut before the end of the year. Now it's two's almost certain. It's more likely to be three than one. So that shows you quite the shock that the non-farm payrolls had. But it's the first time I see that I think almost the markets have overestimated how many cuts there are, because when I look at the cuts now, my brain goes, oh, inflation's going to raise its head if we do cut that much. And again, the same thing with the sort of India, America, Trump standoff, that if Trump gets what he wants, oil is going to shoot up, and that's going to be massively inflationary as well. So, you know, at the end of this, you know, sort of my thoughts of actually what's been going on in the world the last few days, inflation's just on to rear its head again.
He seems to be getting his way one way or another.
Yes.
Thank you, Alex, for all your insight. And thank you for watching. For more financial content, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.